Okay, sorry.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I want to thank everyone that's chimed in, and of course, all the speakers of today who have brought a great deal of knowledge into this presentation. And so, like Mike Russo's had mentioned earlier, it takes a lot from leadership to trickle down and implement initiatives like this as such. And fortunately, our UHS system is big enough where we have a lot of components, but it also makes it challenging to coordinate efforts like this. With regards to internal audit, what happens then when you get certification? And the goal of that, from the audit perspective, is that you want to have sustainability in that. And with that, then you have to have uh, some kind of mechanism. In this case, in ours, it requires that we have an internal audit aside from ABS's external audit that comes in. And so with that, we've developed that. So when Art first got his certification, our department reviewed, what the goals are, what the standards are, and from that, we built an audit plan for that. And because it compiles with so many layers, you have things that touch on written policies all the way down to uh, data testing, which is the actual assets. So in our department, our primarily focus is, of course, in monitoring waste, fraud, and abuse. And with assets, where we see the risk in that, and I'll go over the risk over that with you all in a little bit. But those are our primary functions. And so, what should an organization ask us to? Why is this important? The audit's important because good asset management leads to the optimum value for the money. It provides the stakeholders with added confidence within the organization. It gives your organization a competitive edge and a better market standing. As you can see, this is another certification that UHS has added to many certifications we've obtained within the system. Being certified in ISO can be seen as taking asset management very seriously. And in our case, due to Art's efforts and his team, they've engaged in the university system to enhance and build that culture of being mindful in compliance with asset management and better management with continuous improvements as you proceed with your program. And it also fortifies your business practices with less paperwork. Um, Here at UHS, our audit team does a lot of risk-based. So everything we do, we take that into consideration. And within the audit work plan, we do the same thing. So this provides for better risk management. It helps outside regulators ensure that health, safety, and environmental conditions are met. And like Mr. Russo's mentioned earlier and Ed mentioned, uh, primarily the focus ultimately you want patient safety being addressed on having such a program. And so within the internal audit, the 7 elements that we follow are, of course, having a good effective program consists of having good written policies and procedures, having a designated compliance officer, which in our situation, our compliance uh, officer and our department operates independently, meaning we answer directly to the CEO and the board of directors. So it puts our compliance and audit program that we look at things very objectively. It effective training and education. So within our audit, observations or findings or not nonconformities, then you develop or recommend training and education to the departments as our department would to with the arts department. And then from this, we start building a consistent and ongoing internal monitoring and auditing program. Then, of course, at some point, we'll get the enforceable system standards. Like in our case, one of the things we are working on that we're working with ART is to possibly get competencies that would be required in certain areas of depending on job descriptions. And so that's something in the future that we're planning for. And of course, provides for prompt response to detect the problems and provide corrective actions in real time. And so those are the important leading factors as to why have the internal audit, a strong internal audit component within your ISO 55001 standards. Next slide, please. So given that, one way an organization can protect itself from costly errors from activities by implementing such good internal controls. And so that's the things the issues we weigh in are the internal controls of not only what the department has in their plan, but also what's actually being, from an auditing perspective, we always look on things on what's in theory and what's in practice. So just because you have a good written policy doesn't mean that it's being followed. And that's why the auditing program is important, because you need that component to test these measures, not only from the policy standpoint, but the actual process standpoint as well. And so again, like I mentioned earlier, we are a risk-based auditing program here. So like in audit, like in Art's case, what we looked at from our audit perspective, we wanted to see, and this is for this cycle and for this year for the audit plan, was what are the most cost expensive assets that we have. And we wanted to see, we were going to test how they went that from start to end, from the time a purchase order was made. And so we involved our our accounting department as well as part of the process to verify many of the testings that we did. And so what that does for you, once you've looked and reviewed these internal controls, whether they're implemented or not, are to, one, safeguard the assets that are within your organization, ensure reliable data on where they're getting this information, on where you're tracking from your assets are coming from. It promotes operational efficiency, and you encourage adherence to policies when you have an audit department that serves as also your department that makes the recommendations to upper leadership in implementing those initiatives or adherence to those policies. And so given that, internal controls should be incorporated to all department policies and procedures. And that's just one of the, again, we're new as far as this certificate. And when I mean new, I think we're 3 years into it. And because it entails so many components within your system, this is where your audit department starts growing. And wherever, like Art mentioned and Mr. Russo's mentioned, that we have plans to go into ISO certifications with our utilities here, which would be facilities management, and hopefully in the future as well as IT component as well. And so given that this is how we're building from the ground up on everything that we're doing from when we started this, and that includes the internal audit component, is also being simultaneously being built from the ground up, given the initiatives that we're looking at, also reviewing the performance of where Art's team is at, and our work plan, our audit work plan will also reflect those measures in terms of what the governance committee is deciding or what they're wanting to review, which will relate to us.